All right. We're going to do this. Welcome back to the Malapert Smart Podcast. I got Vlad with me. The wrestling expert is back on the show. Thank you for joining us, Vlad. I appreciate you coming on. It's nice to see you again. And I also got Robert, the Frozen Asian. Thank you for coming on also. Say what's up.
What's up?
All right. Listen, I know we're all three tired-ass fools here today. We just got off work, but we got to squeeze in this podcast because the people, our subscribers, are dying to know what we think about all the news. We've already heard everyone else talk about it, but the people really wait for the Malapert Smart opinions and the wrestling expert, the Frozen Asian. I'm like just the host here, but you guys are the stars of the show. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. I know you're tired today. You know, I used to think that if you made a basketball player or a soccer player do an 8-hour shift and then go do their game, they can't do it, bro. It's too hard. It's impossible. An 8-hour shift in any job will wipe people out, bro. You'll get tired, okay? So I feel you guys. I know we're tired and we can barely think and talk, but let's just try to forget about life and how hard our day was, and let's just talk wrestling. No pressure here. Let's just chill, and let's talk about the latest WWE news. There's been a lot of news lately, and we're going to start with Vince McMahon, okay?
Lord almighty. Lord almighty. All right, let's do it. Let's talk about Vince. Let's get it over with.
I know. Listen, let me just preface this by saying I'm not going to go through every gory detail of it like all the other shows. I've listened to a lot of podcasts, not every one of them, because there's a lot of wrestling podcasts, but I listen to a fair amount, like Dutch Mantel, Wrestle Talk is another one I kind of follow. Bischoff, I did the 83 weeks one. They all go through the whole details of this whole thing, like in really, really horrible, terrible detail, which we're not going to do, okay? We're a wrestling podcast, first and foremost. We don't really do, like, news or what happens in people's personal lives, okay? So we're going to just try to focus on the ramifications this has on the actual wrestling show, if that's possible. First of all, I wanted to say that I listened to Bischoff's podcast, which is pretty funny because Bischoff was the one guy in wrestling above Vince for 83 weeks because, as we are following that storyline on our channel, the WCW storyline when they beat WWF in the ratings, it was the only time in the past, since like the 80s, that anybody was above Vince in the ratings and on top of the wrestling business. So it was kind of interesting to hear what Bischoff had to say. And not only him, but everyone thinks this is the end of Vince. It's over. He's resigned from WWE. He's gone. So the Vince era is over. It's done. But he went at him. He went at Vince. He had a rivalry with Vince. He literally challenged him to a match on WCW Nitro. And then, they did business together and whatnot, and he went to WWF and worked for him. So, but it was funny to hear what Bischoff had to say about it, just disappointment about the whole case and all that and all the details of it. But he also did say that Vince brought this upon himself. And just like Brett screwed Brett this time, Vince screwed Vince. And I don't want to go through the details of it for another reason because I can't really say for sure if it's all true, okay? If I'm the one guy to say that and if that's bad or if that's going to get me like cancel cultured or whatever, I just, it's a case at this point. He has a right to defend himself. And I've heard of vindictive people. I've had cases brought upon me. I had a restraining order put against me, and my neighbor made up ridiculous shit just to get the restraining order, like outrageous stuff. It said that I tried to run him over, that I tried to fucking break his door down, like bust into his house, and it wasn't very hard for me to disprove that in court. But anyways, my point is, maybe some of this stuff is true, maybe all of it's true, maybe none of it's true. I don't know. I don't really want to even speculate, to be honest. Let's just talk about the ramifications for the wrestling business. I'll start with Vlad. Any thoughts on what this means in terms of his legacy? Let's start with that. Let's start with his legacy because I want to talk about the future going forward, but let's talk about the past first and what you think of Vince. What do you think of Vince and what do you think this will make people think of Vince in the future?
Obviously, he's a very important figure in wrestling history. I mean, he took wrestling national. He popularized it in the 80s, right? It became household, extremely exciting time, wrestling boom, as they said in the 80s. It kind of floundered a little bit in the early 90s and then picked back up in the, 97, 98 time, and then from there it was red hot again. He oversaw that. He was the creative genius behind a lot of ideas. He's a great promotional guy. From a wrestling standpoint, is one of the great wrestling promoters of all time. I mean, there's no way around that, if not the best wrestling promoter of all time. And he's also one of the great heels as far as a character goes of all time.
I agree.
If you talk about just his character, his wrestling character, separate that from what he is as just a wrestling promoter as well. So that is his legacy as far as that goes. Now do you want me to talk about what his legacy is now, or if it was damaged by this?
Just real quick.
I mean,
do you think he'll be like Chris Benoit now? Like, we can't even mention him anymore? Or is he going to be erased from the history books? Is it like that?
I don't want to. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think if the allegations are true based on what she's accusing him of, this lady, it's a very, very, very bad look. And yes, it will ruin his reputation. It will ruin his legacy because they're pretty vile stuff, stuff that's pretty disgraceful for any human being to do to another human being. Whether that person also bears some responsibility, I'm not going to say, because I don't know the full story. I don't understand I don't understand how someone could go on years letting that be done to them. I just don't understand it. Maybe I'm naive or dumb or whatever. I just don't understand that type of way of living. But okay, the point I'm trying to make is this. Yeah, it's going to hurt Vince. How can it not? He's being accused of such vile, awful things that it's going to hurt his legacy.
But will he get Chris Benoit?
Canceled completely? I think, considering that he doesn't have any say in the company anymore, they could kind of erase him from the company.
That's so much footage, though, man. That's like everything. It's like the whole Stone Cold storyline, everything from 2002 to 2006, basically.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's going to be completely not shown, in that sense. If it's going to be a completely Chris Benoit, where he won't be seen ever on their archived stuff that they have on Peacock or whatever have you. But there is going to be some ramifications for this if it turns out to be true. There's no way around it. And chances are some of it is probably true, just because.
All right. Listen, before we get to that, I know. I agree. None of it was really surprising to me personally. I know a lot of people are horrified and surprised. I was just like, it makes sense if you know Vince, even if you just know his on-screen character. But anyways, I got to get to Robert. We're 10 minutes into the show. I'm sorry, Robert.
Yes.
But let me give Robert the floor. If you could give any comments first, because we're going on Vince's legacy, what do you think of Vince? Because you were a big fan of WWF. Like you said, when we watched WCW, you were watching WWF, not WCW. So you saw a lot of him when you were a kid and when you were younger. Talk about first what you think of Vince overall and his legacy in wrestling.
Before I get to the legacy stuff, let me just say when I first heard about these allegations, it first made me think of a lot of the segments that they did way back, I want to say in the early 2000s, especially the stuff with Trish Stratus.
Of course.
The stuff that he made her do on screen, by the way.
Yeah.
That's right.
And then I haven't watched any of that back, but I would think that if I were to watch those segments back, it would hit differently in light of the allegations. Clearly, it should.
Sure.
If I were to watch it now, I would probably think, wait, is this art imitating life? Or wait, am I saying that backwards? Or was it life imitating art? I forgot. Well, there's a saying that's it's both. Okay.
Both.
Okay. So that's probably what I would be thinking if I were to rewatch those segments right now, which I'm not going to. I don't need to rewatch that. But that was the first thing that I thought in my head. I thought back to those segments back in the early 2000s, and I was like, okay, maybe, yeah. I mean, Vince was supposed to play a character, but was he really playing a character? I don't know. I want to emphasize to anybody that's listening or watching, as of right now, these are still just allegations.
I did mention that in the beginning.
As far as I know, because I haven't really closely followed this, there hasn't been anything proven yet, so we'll see where that goes. But let's assume the worst and that these allegations are true. Yes, this definitely ruins his legacy, his reputation goes down the gutter for sure. I don't think he'll be Chris Benoit though, because he was way more involved in the company than Chris Benoit was, and he was much more important to the company growing to where it was. Like his rivalry with Stone Cold, it really helped push the company to new heights, and so I don't think he will get the Chris Benoit treatment. They probably will never mention his name again on WWE television, and they'll probably never re-show footage in future episodes. But I don't think they'll just completely erase him from what's already out there. I don't think it will be completely erased like what they did with Chris Benoit.
I think possibly my guess is they could go back and do like the ones like you said, like the Trish Stratus one, anything raunchy, anything sexual.
Probably that, yeah.
They could do that. Maybe they won't erase the whole Stone Cold thing, but it's also interesting looking back on it because WWF at the time took a lot of the raunchiness from ECW because they were doing anything they could to beat WCW and not go out of business. And they took the ECW raunchiness and really embraced it. And even when ECW and WCW were out of business, they kept going with it. Like Vince, a lot of people say this was him, from stories we hear about him hanging out with Russo, and Cornette even talks about how they were horn dogs, basically, which is different from the accusations that are made now. Being a horn dog isn't really that crazy. I mean, all of us in school at the time, we were like elementary school, middle school students, and even teenagers and young adults were very into that raunchiness of the show at the time. It was not PC like it is today. It was very lowbrow, low class, a lot of like, Howard Stern type of stuff from his early, which he tries to shy away from these days because he's become like mainstream, which I don't know how the hell they get people to ignore what because he had girls get shit on too, and in his show, like literally, I've listened to that on the show. I was listening to him back then. I'm not saying that's good, okay? I'm sure a lot of guys are into that, not everyone's like a big public figure and could be shamed about it, you know what I mean? But all I'm saying is I'm just thinking back, just like Robert did, that, man, a lot of the show that we watched was very weirdly sexual, okay? And that was normal at the time. It was normal at the time. Normal. I mean, they had to do whatever they had to do to get ratings. Sometimes they would hit, like, I was looking at some of the ratings from that Monday Night Wars earlier today. Sometimes they would hit 8-9 million viewers. 9 million viewers. And if they were doing it with the lowest common denominator, like people who were lowbrow and into like that type of entertainment, okay, but that's kind of what got them to where they are today. So I don't know. I'm just thinking here, like a lot of these podcasts that have been coming out, it's a very difficult subject to broach. But personally, if we were going around the horn talking about Vince, I'm a big fan. Like I'm not a fan of him business-wise. I don't like how he tried to put everyone out of business and everything. And I mean, look at him now. Look at where it ended up. This is the end of Vince. He's gone. He lost too. He put everyone else out of business, and then in the end, he fucking lost too. You remember how, Vlad, the other day when we were watching Royal Rumble, we were talking about how did they miss out in the 90s not doing business with each other, WWF and WCW. And you were like, no, there's no way. It's impossible. They were rivals. They were trying to, like, why though? Look at both of them. Both of them are dead now. They should have done business together. If you look at how it ended up for both of them. So it's a very shocking end. Hold on. Let me finish. I'll let you respond to that. But yeah, I'm just saying that this is not how we expected this to end. Obviously, it's not how anybody imagined it would end. We all imagined, of course, Vince would go into the Hall of Fame. The Undertaker would probably give his speech going in, and he would be, given the praise that he deserved for the work he did on screen and off screen. So, yes, it is weird to me. I was a WCW fan, so I was like kind of butthurt that he put them out of business. I didn't like him as a businessman and all that. I think he should have done more to unite the wrestling business. There was enough of a pie for everybody. Like in the 80s, territories worked together. They weren't trying to put each other out of business. So that, I think, was fucked up. And just a weird personality trait he had. But in the end, as a character, I think he was one of the fucking most amazing heel characters I've ever seen. Like, his acting was second to none. His acting was so good. Better than movie acting. I've seen movie actors that sound faker than Vince. Vince was completely realistic sounding. He didn't sound like he was acting at all. He was a 10. His on-screen character, when he started feuding with Stone Cold, before that, when he was a commentator or whatever, he was okay. You know, he was kind of Bischoff-esque when they were commentators. But once he became an on-screen character and a heel on the show, he was gangbusters, man. And I would hope to someday, if we have time, cover some of the footage of him and some of his storylines. You know, I wouldn't cancel. I didn't even cancel Chris Benoit. I play him on the show. I don't know if that's controversial to a lot of people, but I don't think you should erase people from history because of what they do in their personal life. I would separate the art from the person. Personally, that's my personal opinion. But I know others be like, no, I can't even watch him anymore. It's over. I can't even bear to look at him. But anyways, Vlad, you wanted to comment on that side note I made about them not doing business together. Did you want to make a comment about that? WCW and WWF.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way they could have really done business together
why not?
90s.
WWE and TNA are doing it right now in a way. I mean,
because it's not competition. It's not really competitive. It's different. TNA is a minor league wrestling promotion, and you could call it an independent wrestling promotion in a sense. They have a TV deal, okay, but nobody can find them. WWE is the wrestling promotion, right? So it's not really the same. At that time, there were really two heavyweight going at it week to week fight, and it was a personal fight. They didn't like each other. And I mean, not in the same way Tony Khan doesn't like the WWE. I mean, an actual fight. This was a war. They didn't call it the Monday Night Wars for no reason, dude. These people did not like each other. The people involved, not so much the wrestlers. I think the wrestlers knew that it was business, but people involved, the management, Bischoff, Vince, Ted Turner, these were not people that got along. So it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, at the time. But looking back on it, all that was kind of ridiculous. They could have both stayed in business, and they could have benefited from working with each other if they were fucking not stupid as hell, which apparently in a way they were. I mean, I don't think Vince should have tried his best to put the territories away and put them out of business. I think that was wrong. I think overall that hurt the business. They could have worked together, and it could have helped the business. I understand what you're saying. It was a real competition. It didn't seem realistic at the time. But I'm saying, looking back on it, WCW is dead. Vince's WWF is dead. He's dead. He's gone. He's over. And
he's gone, but the company lives on, and he's going to still get all the revenue, unless he goes to jail for something, which I don't see happening. Most likely not. I mean, we'll see where there's legs to this case, if it leads to something else, or if it leads to other allegations. We don't know. I mean, we can only guess. But as it is right now, I don't see any jail time. And he's still going to get money from the huge deals that they've just signed, all these TV deals, all the stuff that they just got from TKO. So, yeah, he's gone, but he's still getting money from the company. I mean, he's still a shareholder, right? He still gets residuals. I mean, I'm not a business savvy person.
Let me ask Robert. Was there any chance WCW and WWF could have done business and both benefited each other and both stayed in business?
I think it's easier to say that. I'm going to bring up another quote, hindsight is 2020. Like, yeah, looking back, sure. But in the heat of the moment, you want to be the top company. You're going to try to outdo the other. That's just how competition works. At the moment back then, I don't think there was any chance of them ever working together. But of course, over time, like, looking back, that would have probably been the better move. But I don't see how it could have happened.
It just seems childish to me now, looking back. Like, I'm going to put you out of business.
Yeah,
no, I'm going to put you out of business.
Looks bad. But, like, if I were in Vince's shoes or Ted Turner's shoes, I probably would have done the same thing that they did. So, who knows?
But with 8 million people watching wrestling overall on Monday, there was enough of a pie for everybody to survive and keep going.
So should different fast food restaurants work together? Should they just all join? Should McDonald's join Carl's Jr.?
That's kind of what's happening, dude. All these businesses are merging in a weird way. Yes, they're becoming
Burger
bigger.
Burger King hasn't merged with McDonald's yet.
Maybe someday. But maybe they should, okay? Anyways, I'm not talking about Burger King. I don't know anything about Burger King. I know about wrestling.
I know. I'm just saying, I'm using it as a comparison. Two major selling the same type of product. They're not just going to join just for the sake of joining or work together, you know.
I mean, the NBA and the ABA did, right? They merged and became one organization.
Did they merge or they didn't merge as equals? The NBA basically
didn't NBA buy them, or
they basically just acquired them.
Yeah,
you know, it's not called. Nobody remembers it as the ABA now.
I'm not even saying WCW and WWF merged. We're on a weird tangent now, but I'm just saying they could have fucking had one pay-per-view together where they fucking tore the roof down. That's all I'm saying. Jesus Christ, would that have been so bad?
That would have been the forbidden door.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, that would have been the forbidden door, right? No, I mean, no, of course it would have been fantastic and great. I'm just saying it was never going to happen. At that time, in a vacuum, in that situation where wrestling was in the 90s, it was never going to happen. Sure, 20 years, 30, 25 years later, you could say whatever you want. You could say, why did they do it?
Listen, Vlad, I got to move on.
Let's move on.
I'm sorry. Yes, I know that's an interesting topic. That's a great topic. We could talk about that all day. But going back to Vince, now that he's gone, Robert, do you have any inkling about how this might affect booking going forward? Now that he's completely out of the picture.
I remember when he was first supposedly out of the picture and Triple H took over. I liked the product better. I thought it got better. It was more interesting. So I could care less, honestly. As far as how it affects booking, it doesn't matter to me. I don't know about
maybe
how
it's
other
a positive.
Yeah, I would say so. I think him not being involved. I've heard rumors. I don't know if there's any truth to this, but I heard rumors that in last year's WrestleMania, Cody was originally supposed to win against Roman Reigns, and then Vince came in that weekend, the day before, and decided to make that change, literally the day before, and gave it to Roman. So
yeah.
Right.
I
so
believe that.
If
Sounds
that's,
like Vince.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true, but if that's true, then okay, then him not being involved with booking, I would say is a positive because then we don't have stuff like that happen anymore.
Vlad, any comments about what this could mean for booking going forward?
It's kind of what I've said maybe in the past in some of our shows. Yes, Vince has been a quote-unquote booker. I don't think that's really where his strengths lie. His strengths are more promoting and being a heelish character. I think his booking is a little bit overrated and overstated. If you look at some of the stuff that he's quote-unquote come up with, especially when wrestling was kind of down in the 90s and the mid-90s, he's not really creative. He's not an outside-the-box thinker. Once an idea is already going, he might come up with something, but he's not one to just come up with something himself or something creative. So I don't think that he'll be missed booking-wise. From what I've read, what's the word I'm thinking, where he doesn't make up his mind and he comes up with stuff at the last second. He's always tearing up, stuff that they've already had written out and done. These are just stuff that I've read and stuff that I've heard about the way he does the wrestling shows and the way he books, quote unquote. So I don't think he'll be missed. I think it's better under Triple H. You need somebody younger that kind of understands what's going on. Vince, he's getting close to 80 years old. I'm not saying that he's gone senile, but it's a young man's game. You want a younger guy.
Passed him by, kind of.
It's kind of. Yeah, I mean, it's in the same way that you say, hey, you know what? Phil Jackson's one of the great coaches of all time, but if you put him out there now, he's not going to be able to coach anybody, right? You've said that because of the way the game is played now, right? So I kind of feel the same way about Vince in that sense. He doesn't understand wrestling as it should be booked now. It's better to be under someone like Triple H.
One comment I'll make is that I made a prediction on this channel that I thought Roman Reigns was going to remain champion for many years. I thought they were just going to keep extending this, but that was a Vinceism to me. I thought that was going to be kind of like a Bruno Sammartino type of thing, 80s Hogan type of thing, where they just wanted to, they wanted to have him have that number, like 10,563 days. What a legacy. That's Vince. You know what I mean? That's something that the people will remember. So now I think I'm more wavering on that prediction. I think Triple H might give the title to Cody this year and just fucking move on with that shit. Because we didn't gain anything from this being extended out a year. Like with the past year for Cody and the Bloodline, it was nothing. Nothing there.
I have to agree.
Yeah. That's one thing. And the last point I'll make before we move on is that it's just kind of weird now that Triple H is our one connection to the past. Like, this company's been handed off to God knows who. It's like a merger with them and UFC. I don't know who's in charge. I don't know who owns it. But Triple H is head of creative, and he's our last connection to the past. Literally.
Correct.
If Triple H is gone, which I don't suspect he will be, I wish him health. I wasn't a fan of him as a wrestler, as a character. Doesn't mean I wish ill upon him. I think he's cool. I think as a booker, he's pretty good. Not the best. WWE isn't really what I want it to be exactly. It's way better than AEW, but he's a really good booker in terms of he knows fucking what he's doing. He's logical, and I gotta say, he's kind of our last hope. Like, if there's a podcast we do 20 years from now, like Triple H dies or he has to step down because of health, like that's really a point where like we don't know what the fuck is going to happen after this. You know what I mean? Like how does it go after this? So as of right now, I think it's not going to change much. And in a sense, Vince could still be giving advice to Triple H because he is his father-in-law. So
True.
he could take advice from him or even take instruction, possibly. We don't know that. We don't know. There's no way to know. But anyways, if anyone doesn't have any other comments, I'm going to move on from Vince McMahon. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I think it's all been said. I mean,
think we covered it all?
Pretty much. I think we covered it as best we could, knowing what we know now. We don't really have the full story, but from what we've heard, I think we covered as well as we could.
Robert?
Nothing else from me.
All right, I'm going to move on to the Netflix thing. Let's see what we can come up with this. Speaking of ending of an era, just like the end of the Vince era, this is the beginning of the end of wrestling on cable TV. It's not completely. It's just WWE Raw for now. It's leaving cable TV. It's going to Netflix. It's the end of ratings for Raw. They're not going to release ratings, which was a big thing for wrestling fans, just to like know how many people watch the show. And I know the ratings, they don't mean the same thing they used to back in the 90s because of internet and people can download the show or download clips, but it's still like some kind of barometer to know how many people were interested enough to watch it live. So I'll start with Robert. Do you have any feelings on, is this significant at all that Raw is moving to Netflix, or it's just not going to really matter that much?
I don't really pay attention to ratings anymore anyway, so not really. I am curious though. I don't know of anything on Netflix currently that they show live. Is there anything on Netflix that they show live, or will WWE?
I don't have Netflix, so ask Vlad.
Okay.
As far as I know, no. This is the first.
So this would be the first. That's interesting. And well, obviously, that being a streaming service, I would imagine you could watch it at any point. So that's cool. It's very convenient. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good move. Netflix is a big name, and the way I see it, it's beneficial for both companies, both WWE and Netflix. I'm wondering if there's still gonna be commercials and ads.
I would definitely suppose so, for sure. Maybe less, hopefully, but you know, they got to make some money off this somehow. This is not just for fun. They definitely got to sell some ads. But yeah, I suppose there will be commercials. I mean, on Peacock, when they have the WWE Premium Live events, they run commercials too. So I'm definitely
run commercials. Okay.
Yeah, they'll be able to run commercials if they want to, but that won't change.
That would be another first for me for as far as a Netflix show. But okay. Interesting. Well, I did hear that prior to a WWE streaming on Netflix, there won't be a TV deal for a few months, is what I heard. I don't know if that's true. So there's a hole for like a few months leading up to the Netflix coverage. So I'm curious as to what they're going to do about that.
I didn't hear that. Interesting. But all right. How about Vlad, man? You got any ideas about this? I mean, when we watched wrestling back in the days in the 90s, ratings were a big deal. So,
a big deal.
This is the end of that. Do you consider that significant at all, or is just the time has passed?
Yeah, I consider it more a sign of the times. I mean, that's where things are going. Things are going towards the streaming sites. You know, they're going towards Netflix. They're going towards Amazon. They're going towards Peacock. They're going towards whatever, you know. So this makes sense. And I'm assuming that eventually, maybe 10, 15 years, a lot of live sports are going to be moving towards streaming. I mean, we already know that there's some Thursday night NFL games are on Amazon. All these networks and all these sports are going to move towards streaming eventually. And cable is just going to eventually die out. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen next year or in 2 years, but within the next 10 years, I think everything will be streaming and not on cable. You know, so this was the first one. It's going to be kind of interesting to watch a live show on Netflix, how that will work. Nobody's never done live TV before like that, but it will be interesting. But Netflix works really well as far as the service. Everything is archived, easy to use, easy to forward through, easy to get through. So, I mean, there's nothing not to like about it from a perspective of a fan. I guess somebody could complain, like, hey, I still have to purchase Netflix to get it, but they have some cheap options as well. You know, you don't have to get the premium version of their service. They have some for like $7 a month. It's not the end of the world. So I guess what I'm saying is that this is a step to the future. It's considered progress, I guess. Whether we like it or not, I don't know if everything should be streaming or not. This is just the way of the world now, and not a surprise. That's the direction things are going. So big deal, huge deal, $5 billion. That's some moolah right there. Just boom, $5 billion. Here's to you, WWE. So we'll see. We'll see where it all goes. But I see it as a step in, I guess, in the right direction. Let's just say.
All right. Well, I'll just say that it seems kind of just sad overall. I think people who grew up in my generation, I'm 36 years old, so when I was growing up, TV was a big deal. We'd flip channels. That's kind of how we were introduced to things. We would just bump into things. If we got bored of something, we would leave and come back. So I don't really personally like streaming. I don't like Netflix. I don't like how you have to pick something. Like you literally have to go there and nothing just comes on. You have to choose something to watch. Like I don't want to choose what to watch. Just play something. So that
they make recommendations to you. They could recommend stuff to you. So I mean,
okay,
there's that.
Whatever. You know what I mean, though. This is just kind of sad overall. It's the end of TV. TV's dying. Like the old TV as we knew it, cable TV. That shit is gone. And I thought it was cool. I thought it was good. I think a lot of old people, for them, it's just easy. People don't really want to learn new things. It's why people stay in the same job, even though there's more better jobs. People just don't want to take the effort to learn something new. Like why? My shit works. It works like this. So it's kind of sad. If someone's really a fan of this and watching TV and now they got to fucking buy Netflix and, figure out how to connect that and start the Netflix and then go press left, right, up, down, this, that, it's just different. That's all I'm going to say about it.
I hear what you're saying, but to be honest, these cable companies have been getting away with murder for years. What they charge, how they increase prices.
But if you sign up to every streaming service, you're going to be paying the same amount. If you get Paramount, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, if you get all of them combined, you're going to end up paying over $100. So I don't really see it being much of a difference because you're just going to have to pick something that you're not going to watch now.
You don't have to get every single one of them.
Well, then you're going to miss something. If you didn't get Peacock, then you're going to miss the
Paramount.
Well, you're going to miss the Champions League soccer then, huh? Fuck. Before it used to be just you have TV and you get everything. Now you got to fucking get every single streaming service. But all right, that's all I'm saying. I'm just saying for people from my generation, it's a little sad. It's not the end of the world. It's just a little sad.
I agree with you, but at the same time, like I said, I've not been happy with these cable companies for a long time, so I'm not exactly sad that if they eventually do die, they kind of deserve it and they bring it on themselves. So I guess what I'm saying is F them,
All right. On that note, we're going to end this segment. We got other topics to get to, but we're going to end this segment about our latest WWE news. And our next segment, we're going to talk about the road to WrestleMania. We have results from the Royal Rumble from a few days ago. So let's get on that. Please subscribe, hit like, by the way, if you haven't yet, and you'll get notified when there's new videos coming out. So thank you for that, and we'll be right back as soon as we can.